What's up, guys? So, I think today would be a good time to talk about a couple of the things that, I haven't really talked about. I might have mentioned it real quick, but not really got into details. And I always miss things when I do videos because the videos are all done just straight, real time. I just, give you my take on it on the fly. And a lot of times I'll talk a lot about certain things and then I do the video, it's over, and then later on I find out, you know what? I meant to talk about this and I just forgot or it happens a lot. So I want to cover a couple of things and some of these things are more recent. So before I get to some of those things, there is one thing that's not here. Okay, give me a second. Um and I want to talk about is oh my god, what is it? Okay, in the last uh, developer diary, which was about the tracks, they talked about scanning, the track scanning, right? And most people who saw that walked away thinking that they scanned all the tracks. And now we know, and has been confirmed by Rusty Walrus, that no, it's only Nashville Superspeedway and the Coda. So a lot of people looked at that and a lot of people were disappointed and there's been mixed feelings about that. So basically I'm just here to give you my take on it. You might feel different. Obviously, I was excited to hear that there was track scanning because obviously the best way to get the most realistic representation of each track is to scan the track. That being said, is this a deal breaker for me? No, it's not. Some things I consider disappointing, but it doesn't mean it's something that's going to make me say, you know what, it's a deal breaker for me, for the game in general. For example, the fact that there's no trucks or Xfinity, yes, that's disappointing. And hold on a second, these things keep popping up. Um, yes, it's disappointing. And yes, I do think we need those series to be part of the game down the line. When? I'm not sure. And to be honest, I'm not even sure it has to be in the next game. It all depends on what Motorsport Games is planning. Okay? And what I'm hoping is that uh, the next game, hopefully, maybe they're going deeper with the career mode to where we actually have ownership and dealing with sponsors and running our own teams. And then you can have that Truck Xfinity experience there and it could go deeper. That's what I'm hoping for. Uh, Again, because that next game is going to come sooner than expected, I'm not sure what they're doing for that next game. So I don't want to get too lost in the weeds with that. But that's just an example of something that, it is kind of disappointing, but it's not a deal breaker. I don't think you have to have it right now to get a good experience, okay? But so in the same sense, to me, this track scanning, yeah, it sounded cool. It sounded like, hey, this is the best way to get the most realistic feel for the game. But is it a deal breaker? No. Um, my issue is the way that it was that developer diary was made. And I honestly think that 99% of the people who saw that, of course they walked away thinking, oh shit, holy shit, they scanned every track. This is awesome. And I rewatched it and I listened carefully when they actually brought it up. And this is where I have an issue. The way that they talked about it, it kind of left it open to interpretation. And obviously, you're gonna assume, yeah, they hired a company to scan those tracks. Who wouldn't think it was going to be all the tracks. But then when you think about it, scanning tracks is not only expensive, it's time consuming. And to have that in the first game, maybe it was a stretch. And you can make the case that, hey, you should have known. But the way that they did it, I have a problem with it. So if anyone at Motorsport Games is listening, you got to be more careful about how you reveal information. And there's a fine line between making an honest mistake and also playing around with the way you show things and say things so that you can leave things sort of open to interpretation, and then you can kind of fall back and say, hey, we didn't tell you it was every track. So there's a fine line there, and I'm not sure if they crossed that line, but I can tell you that the fact that most people actually took it to mean that they scanned all the tracks and that wasn't the case, to me that's proof that they could have done better. So I'm not going to kill them over it. They came out, they were asked about it, and to their credit, they admitted it. They said, "No, it's just those two tracks." Just try to do better, because the worst thing that can happen for a developer when it comes to marketing is to develop a reputation for not being honest, right? I don't want to say lie, but a lot of developers, they play games and they like to mislead people, and they do it by wording things a certain way, and you can't blame consumers. You have to take the blame for that. So be more careful how you market things. They made a big deal of the track scanning, and all they had to do was say, look, we scanned these two tracks. We hope in the future to be able to scan more tracks if that's the case. And just say, we couldn't get more tracks done because of the expense and the time, and it just wasn't doable. So we selected these two tracks because we don't have a lot of information on them. So the track scanning made sense for those two tracks. And hopefully in the future we can, do more track scanning. But at the moment, these are the only two tracks that we scanned, and I don't think anybody would complain. Honestly, people would just say, okay, it's cool they scanned those two tracks. Hopefully in the future they can do more. But is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. So, um, and by the way, yes, it sounds like impressive to scan tracks, but how many race titles actually use track scanning? Now, I can't tell you off the top of my head who does it and who doesn't, but I think it's a safe bet that most race games don't use track scanning. Um, iRacing does, right? But that's the top of the line simulator. I don't know about Assetto Corsa. I don't know about any of these other games, but plenty of good, solid race titles don't have track scanning. See, the difference between scanning a track is getting that actual real time information or data from a real live track, and, or I should say, just I don't know how these guys do it, right? They take photographs and they make designs, and then they say, okay, you should have some bumpy areas down the backstretch. Like let's say we're talking about California, which is not even on the schedule anymore, but certain telltale features or characteristics of a track that should be there, and you can program that without using track scanning. Track scanning, all it does is it reads the track and gives you raw data, and then developers have to take that and then you know code it into the tracks. It's really not the end of the world that these other tracks are not scanned. It's all up to Motorsport Games how well that they put detail in the track. It's still the same information. It's just that one is real time. It was actual. I actually read from a track scan, and the others are guesstimates, right? It's not like, oh, this one feels better than the other. It's just that one is more accurate to real life. You're not going to notice, I don't think, much of a difference, right? It's just nice to know. So, not a deal breaker. I'm okay with it. You might feel different. Let me know. Speaking of deal breaker, yes, no. There are two things in the game, and then I could finally talk about what I really want to talk about here that I consider deal breakers, right? One, I've already said the AI. The AI for me is going to make or break the game for me. I care more about career mode and offline racing. So for me, the AI is everything. Yes, the physics are important, but you can have physics of a fucking shopping cart. If the AI is really good, you're going to have a good time. The racing's going to be good. I'm not saying physics don't matter. I'm just saying that when it comes to offline racing, the behavior, the characteristics of the AI is everything. So for me, that's going to make or break the game. For online gamers, people who only care about multiplayer online racing, I guessing, I'm guessing uh, that the deal breaker there is no private lobbies. If you can't have private lobbies where you run the people you want to run against and create leagues and that stuff, that is a potential deal breaker. And if I'm somebody who cares about online, yeah, that's something that I'm more concerned about because these random lobbies are a joke. Okay. Now, on a positive note, they are using brand new servers. They're not going with the same old servers from like 704 games and all the problems that came with it. And hopefully, everything runs smoother with less lag and just a smoother experience. And if you want to have esports be a thing that's taken seriously, then that's exactly what I expect them to do, and that's what they're doing. So I do expect I expect there to be issues early on. Uh, most, even big titles, right? I remember when Grand Theft Auto 5 was released, and I think the online came on like 2 weeks after. That thing was a disaster at launch. People they were ready to jump off a bridge, and in a very short amount of time, Rockstar fixed everything, and the rest is history. So do not panic if on day one there are issues. They will sort them out. That's not, that's totally normal. So those are the two things so far that I've spotted that I would consider game deal breakers for me on purchasing a game or uh, just something that to me is game breaking. Like if it could ruin your experience. So the good news is that having private lobbies, and I'm not a game developer. Anybody feel free who knows about developing games, feel free to come in and school me. But doesn't sound to me like something that's hard to do. So is this something that maybe they're gonna just patch it in after they release the game? It's possible. They haven't talked about it. Maybe somebody from Motorsport Games could chime in, or maybe on Twitter or whatever, somebody can ask about it. Uh, I just I don't see how what's so hard about that. I don't. It doesn't sound like something that's difficult to do, and I don't know. So those are my two possible deal breakers. Now let's get on to the other stuff, right? This I talked about. I don't know. I don't even know if I talked about it, but let's. All right. Will players be able to create their own character in career mode? I'm not sure if I covered this before, but yes, you can create your own character in career by selecting a contract from one of the teams. Blah blah blah. Customizing a driver's appearance is not allowed. Okay, fine. So we knew you can't customize a driver's appearance, but This is another one of those things where you got to be careful if you're motorsport games, how you word things. Will players be able to create their own character in career mode? You said yes, but then you go on to say you can't customize their appearance. So technically, you can't really create your own driver. You kind of select one. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to have like a preset. You just pick like a man between a man and a woman. Maybe there's two or three different character models, but you can't change them. You just pick, whatever. That's what it sounds like to me. But will players be able to create their own character? This is another one of those things that kind of falls into that thing where, hey, yeah, we scanned these two tracks, but you weren't more specific. They are being specific here, but this is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of contradictory. So let's move on to the next thing, and that's not a big deal either. Not in the first game. Down the line, though, I do think it's important, you know, because of the paint booth feature. Which, let me talk about it now before I forget, because I know I'm gonna forget it. These things are gonna be here, so I'm not gonna be able to. I mean, I'm not gonna forget. So we got paint booth, right? The character thing at some point, yeah, I think you want to give people the ability to create your own character and give it more detail. Listen, are they ever gonna do face scanning like NBA 2K? I wish. I think that's awesome. I fucking love that. It's one of the things that drew me to NBA 2K, and I love playing as myself and seeing my image in the game. But it's not going to be one of those things where I'm like, on these guys, hey, we need face scanning. So I don't want people to think, man, where's this guy going? I'm just throwing that out there saying, hey, that's a cool feature that I would love to see. But give us the ability to change the character, model it a little different, play with it, so that as you play in the career mode throughout the presentation, you actually see at least the character you created and at least kind of can model after yourself, even loosely, which most games, decent games, have that ability where you can just play with, how a character looks till you come up with something that's closely resembles you, right? And then, like MLB The Show, there's so many things you could do to change the character, manually. And you could just come up with something that loosely resembles you. It's not a face scan, but it's close enough. So speaking of the paint booth, I didn't really talk that much about it, but one of the things I read somewhere, I don't know if it was on Twitter or Reddit, but I did see confirmation that you're going to be able to save 10 different paint schemes, which I like because that hasn't been a thing. And with 704, you can just do that one scheme and then you're stuck with it for a year and you got to wait till you finish your season and then change it again and you don't really have any options. It was horrible. But being able to save 10 different schemes, one, it's cool because you can create multiple schemes and not say, okay, look, I just created this awesome scheme, but now I got an idea for a completely different scheme and I want to do that. But I'm going to have to just erase a scheme that I just put a lot of time into and I really like. But you can save up to 10, which is plenty for me. Now, does that mean that this is what I'd like to know? If somebody can ask Motorsport Games, or if Motorsport Games could chime in, if you happen to be watching this very tiny channel. In career mode, are we going to be able to, let's say we have 8 or 9 saved paint schemes that we worked hard on and we're very proud of, and you're in your career mode, when you drive for a specific team or as you move, let's say you just get a, part-time contract, whatever it is, are we going to be able to race these custom schemes we worked on, or are we stuck with like a specific sponsor for a car and we can't really change the scheme? And these paint schemes, maybe there are only going to be something we could use online. There are questions that I'm just not sure about. They really haven't talked a lot about the paint booth other than to say that we're going to be happy with all the options and how we're going to be able to play with it and come up with really cool schemes. Outside of that, they haven't really talked about how it's going to work in game and how it's going to work within the career mode, which is really what interests me because if we're stuck in a situation like with 704, and one of the things I hated the most was you only had you know a super limited different couple of designs you could choose, and then you're stuck with that for a season. What I'd like to see is where you can select the scheme you want to run on a race by race basis. So if I have 8, 9, 10 schemes saved up, I can decide before the race, I'm going to run this scheme today. And then if you want to force a sponsor that kind of goes over your scheme, for whatever reason, uh, I'm not really crazy about it, but I could live with it, at least for the first game. But I'm curious to know, how is this paint booth going to work in conjunction with the career mode? It's very important. I mean, it's great that we got a paint booth and we're going to be able to play around with that stuff. But if it's not something that you're going to have the freedom to really mix and match and use throughout your career without any really big barriers in the way, then it kind of defeats the purpose of all this customization. So I hope motorsport games can maybe clear some of this stuff up. I don't think they've done a great job of really clearing up a lot of things. So hopefully they could talk about that stuff. The thing about again, I'm going to get to this stuff. There's one more thing talking about this. The next developer diary is going to be about motorsport games and the people behind it, developers, the people behind the scenes. I think it's going to be the least interesting of the three developer diaries that they're releasing. It's going to be the last one. It's going to be short, like all the other ones. I'm not sure we're going to see anything there uh, that's going to be like wow. We might see something in the background where they show clips of gameplay footage, but it's going to be more about motorsport games and the people behind it. Me, for me excuse me, for me personally, it does interest me because I like stuff like that. But I could understand where other people are like, I don't really care about this. I care more about the game details. But I do look forward to seeing it. Who knows? They might mention something. But don't expect much from that last developer diary. I don't know when it's coming, but you never know. It could drop this week. It could drop next week. Who knows? Now let's move on finally to the other stuff. Can players create their own team to race? We already know the answer is no. Okay. Are each of a team's car available to choose from selecting a new contract? No. The contract offered, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about, the contracts. That's another thing that I really haven't talked about, and this is where I'm going to do it. The contracts offered by each team are for a specific number already chosen. Okay? Some car numbers and drivers are considered franchise drivers and will remain with their rides over the course of multiple seasons. And then, yeah, I thought I was going to see more, but from the stuff people have been posting, we have silly season in the game. And drivers in the Cup Series, as things move forward, some of them are going to be replaced with people from like Xfinity and Truck, right? So they do have drivers from those series, even though those series aren't in the game. They do have some of those drivers, I suppose. And as the seasons move on, they're gonna have a silly season where you're gonna see, this way you don't see the same drivers in the same car year after year after year, and it gives it a little more variety. I really like that. Um, does it add a ton to me to the game? No, it's not as big a deal to me as it is to maybe other people, but anything they can add to the game to just spice it up a bit, I'm always in favor of it. And I like the idea of that, where all of a sudden you see some guy from the truck or Xfinity. Now he's driving, Harvick's car, and Harvick retires or whatever. I'm not sure what's going to happen, But I am curious to see what happens with that. So that is cool. This silly season thing is, it's kind of a surprise. But they just revealed that sometime last week, I think. People are talking about it. Now, the contract thing, Real Radman covered this a while ago. You know what? Let me move forward. I'll talk about that in a second. How the driver value. This is something I have no idea what this means. How is the driver value determined for a player's driver and career mode? Made up of the following factors, the blah blah blah. Your salaries 50%, your race winnings 75, endorsements 100, your contract clauses minus 100%. I'm really not sure what any of this means. The way they're explaining it here doesn't really answer much to me. Endorsements, I guess, yeah, when you sign contracts, specific contracts, there's going to be little clauses in there and endorsement deals mixed in. And I guess a percentage of your winnings and I don't know, whatever. The one thing here that I'm going to say that's going to take away, let's hold on. I'll get to that in a second. You got an in-game agent who's going to be in touch with you regarding contracts. Hold on a second. All right. In-game agent. Come on. All right. I'm going to be on tonight, by the way. If you happen to not be doing anything, you want to stream uh, my league race with iRacing. There's a Wednesday night league. Oh my God, I forgot the name of it. That's not neither here nor there. But receiving new offers, in-game agent. So I like that. You're gonna have an agent. It's kind of like it used to be with the Thunder games. Pop-up messages, new contract. You'll be able to negotiate things. Right? That's cool. Will there be driver changes between seasons? Okay, here's the silly season. Being a major part of NASCAR will feature some driver changes between seasons. There will not be driver movement between teams. Okay, so it's not like you're gonna have Keselowski go and drive for like Joe Gibbs and things like that. I get it, but they'll probably just disappear and then one a truck or Xfinity guy. But some drivers will retire from that's exactly what I just said, and replaced by up and coming drivers making up their way from Xfinity and truck. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I like it. It's gonna spice things up a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see who fucking retires or whatever. Career booster. I don't like this at all. Players will start. I mean, I guess it's good if for as an option, but to me, this kills a lot of the one of the things about contracts, right? And I even liked it with 704. I know it was real basic and very shallow, but when you first start your career in the trucks or something, I really enjoyed having those contracts and or stipulations in the contract where like if you finish 22nd or better, you will fulfill your obligation, and that's things like that. Having goals race by race really, to me, added a lot more than I thought it would. And it's not a big deal, it's a simple thing, but I like stuff like that. I like having goals, and that in this race your goal is finish 22nd or better, and it wasn't easy, right? So I like that. I really like that. But this career booster allows you to bypass all that, and you could start a full season with a guaranteed contract. It's just a quick way to skip a lot of stuff that to me kind of defeats the purpose of a career mode. You might as well just do a season or something. I don't know. Let's get back to the contracts. Here's the thing with the contracts, and why I'm not really sure it's going to add a lot. The thing about having these goals, where you finish, and having these things affect your contract status and all that, I love it. just like I just talked about with, we saw with some of the Heat games. I like this. I like that connection between playing the game and having those contracts there to kind of give you that reason to meet certain goals. But the big thing here is salary. And to me, I don't see salary playing any role in the game. What's the point of a salary if you can't own teams? If there's no expenses? It's gonna be is it gonna be just a number that piles up like we saw with the earlier Heat games? Even with the latest Heat games where you have uh, ownership and expenses, once you bought everything and once you moved up and got the best parts and all that shit, money just piles up again. There's no day-to-day expenses. There's no having to fix wrecked race cars and pay salaries to employees. It's it's just like it's meaningless. The money be always becomes meaningless. How is money going to play a role here? They haven't mentioned that at all. And to me, that really kills half of the contracts. Like the money part of it, unless they come out and explain to us how the money's going to work, I'm not sure it's going to play a role at all. But the other stuff with the the finishing position, average finish, your rank, your wins, having to meet those goals to maybe appease sponsors and keep them happy, and using these things to maybe get a better contract. Love all of it, but it's not going to be super deep. And like I said, the 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 possible fact, right? Like I said, maybe they come out and tell us something we don't know. The possibility that the salary is not going to have a big part of what happens, it's not going to matter. Then who cares? You know, negotiating salary in a contract. How exciting is that if the money at the end of the day doesn't mean much? Then just negotiate other parts of the contract and don't worry about how much they pay you. Again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I don't have all this information. It's still early. They may explain some of this stuff, but that's one of my biggest concerns with the contract part of the game with the career mode. But I'm really happy with most everything that we're seeing. I talked about the silly season. I talked about the contracts. I talked about the paint booth, okay, which I really didn't get into detail earlier about, being able to save up to 10 schemes. I want to know how it plays into the career mode and how much freedom are you going to have with using your custom schemes in game. Is this going to be something where if you take over Kevin Harvick's ride, now you have to drive, Bush sponsors and his other sponsors, or are you going to be able to drive his car, or which is now your car, that four car, but you can run your own paint scheme and run your own sponsors. I really hope that it's the latter. If you have to still run specific sponsors, which is possible, then what's the point of all this customization? The whole point of it is to have it work within the game and give you that freedom. And I really want that freedom to mix and match and just, run one scheme, in this race, and then next week I'm going to run the other scheme. And hopefully, as the series goes on, game by game, in the future, it just gets deeper, more immersive, and more detailed, and give us more and more freedom. At the end of the day, the more freedom we have to play with the game and have it customizable to where, you know, it kind of gives us that feeling like we are really part of a real career and in a living, breathing world of NASCAR. That to me should be the end goal. And the more barriers you put in front of people and, like say, hey, yeah, you can make any kind of scheme you could think of, but you can only use one scheme per season, like we saw with, 704. Or you are forced to use, if you drive, Kyle Busch's car, you're going to be driving M&Ms and interstate batteries, that kind of stuff. And your custom schemes are just kind of, you're not going to be able to just use it on on the number 18. So these are things I'm curious about, and if anybody can answer those questions, I would really appreciate it. It pretty much covers most of the stuff I just haven't really discussed in detail. um, yeah, I can't think of anything else. So let me know if there's anything that I haven't covered, and maybe I could talk about when I do another video. I do the best I can. I really just shoot from the hip. I put the camera on, and then I kind of have a general idea of what I want to talk about, but you know I don't know how long the video is going to end up being. I just giving you my thoughts, unfiltered, unedited, and low budget. This is a low budget channel, and it's probably why it hasn't grown, but it's okay. That's not never been my real goal. But one of the positive things, I do want to thank you guys who have stuck with me for a long time. For those of you who don't know, I have been doing videos for um give me a second. I hate wearing these glasses now, but you get older, you lose your vision, and I can't really read anything without using my glasses. But I appreciate everybody who's been there. I've been doing videos for 11 years now. That's a long time. And one of the good things is, I guess I could say, of having such a small channel with low subscriber count, I recognize almost everybody. I see the same names, and I could almost always uh, answer people's questions, or respond to a comment, and I do try to do that. And I think that's something that a lot of bigger YouTubers with a much larger subscriber count, I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to go through 500, 1,000 comments, whatever it is. Who has time for that? So having a small channel, that's one of the bonuses, I guess. And I do recognize most of you guys have been around a long time, and I think it's kind of cool. We have our own little community here in this channel. So I do appreciate you guys. And as always, you guys keep me informed. And a lot of times, most of the time, I don't break news. I kind of just give you my take on it. You guys find things out before I do, and then you kind of let me know about it, and then I go and check it out. So I'm always grateful for that. And when more information comes out, I'll talk about it. I look forward to your comments later.